The following is a Candlepin Stars and Strikes rebroadcast featuring some of our most memorable programs.
Candlepin Stars and Strikes.
Yeah, come on!
Oh, 20 more! Oh!
From Park Place Lanes in Windham, featuring outstanding candlepin bowlers from all over New England.
You're gonna hear some noise if this is a strike. Got a shot at it. Yes! Got it in a row! Oh, wow!
Candlepin Stars and Strikes is produced in conjunction with the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association. And now your hosts, Doug Brown and Dan Murphy.
Hi everybody, and from Park Place Lanes here in Windham, New Hampshire, welcome once again to 2 full hours of Candlepin bowling here on the Winds. Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy. And this is semifinal week, and a significant one indeed, because it's our last semifinal week in regular series this year.
Absolutely. We're looking for that sixth piece of the puzzle. We need one more qualifier for the Tournament of Champions, and we're down to 3 qualifiers left.
We are indeed, and let's meet 2 of them. The 2 guys who will be battling in this particular show. Of course, the winner this week moves on to the finals next week, and a chance to move into that Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. First of all, our number 4 seeded bowler had a big win last week over Joe Ashline with a 4.15 from Plastow, New Hampshire, looking for his second in a row, Gary Carrington.
Okay, Gary carries an average of 128. He has a high single 195, and the all-important roll-off score 665.
Indeed, that was good enough to put him 4th in this particular series, which means he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to come up to the top. He's won 1 match already, going for number 2 in a row today. But trying to stop him is our number 2 seed, making his first appearance here on Stars and Strikes from Lynn, Massachusetts, Neil Gosselin.
Okay, Neil carries an average of 127, high single 184, and his roll-off score 674.
A little bit later on in the program, of course, we will have $100 up for grabs in the bonus ball contest. We hope that you have entered. If not, we'll tell you how to do that a little bit later on. And we'll be looking ahead to the Tournament of Champions as well. It's only 2 weeks away now here on the Winds, and we'll try and preview that for you a little bit as well. But we've got bowling to attend to, 3 strings between Neil Gosselin and Gary Carrington. We'll get it started right after we take these words. Don't go away. Okay, it is semifinal week here on Candlepin Stars and Strikes, and last week, if you missed it, Gary Carrington with the big 4.15 to post a win over Joe Ashline, and of course 2 weeks ago, if you missed it, Frank Rose was unable to compete due to injury, so Gary was able to move ahead, face Joe Ashline, took advantage, beat him last week, and now he's looking for 2 in a row against Neil Gosselin. The winner of this one will get Glenn LeBlanc next week in the series championship match. And, of course, the winner of that match moves into the Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. So we are set to go. Semifinal week here on Stars and Strikes. Gary Carrington will get things moving here. Glad you could join us, as always, here on the Winds. 2 full hours today. Of course, we'll have our semifinal match on Stars and Strikes doubles coming up immediately following this match at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, Gary's looking at the 4 horsemen on the left, plus the 9 pin.
Tell you, with a 4.15 down last week that Gary had, we were talking about a little bit at the time, it was almost like a quiet 4.15, even with the fact that he threw a triple strike in that match, but really with the number of shots that he just missed,
it could have been a lot more.
It could have been a much higher score. I guess when you can maybe be a little bit off or not get a couple of breaks and still throw 4.15,
yeah,
you're having a pretty good day.
1378 Gary's looking at. Slides by to the left.
'19 opening pair for Gary. And now Neil Gosselin. And of course, it's the law. If you're from Lynn, you have a lot of people brooding for you.
That's right. They always seem to show up for the Lynn bowlers, and Neil is no exception. First time in front of the lights for Neil. what you hope for is a quick mark.
Oh, and there it is. That was pretty quick.
And it does two things. Gets rid of some of the butterflies, and of course it gives you a little confidence. He's not only got the lights and the cameras to contend with and the crowd, but also Gary Carrington, which is no stranger to anybody that does any candlepin bowling at all.
6 drop, another tough leave.
You don't see this too often. 2-4 on the left, 3-6. Split the 2-4. He could catch the wood in between. Or I should say in the back of the 6-pin, could kick it forward, but we'll never know.
Well, Neil takes the early lead by 5, putting up that mark in the first.
So we're in top of the second.
Yeah. Oh, big first ball. Gary leaves the 9-pin somehow, although he was fortunate not to leave the 7-pin. And that wood moved right out in front and stopped.
Almost like somebody put the brakes on. Makes it a real difficult shot. The 9-pin got to come high left on the wood. Like that. Great
Nice.
shot. Boy, he made that look easy, and that was not an easy shot. Watch where he comes. Almost caps the piece of wood. In fact, he does cap it.
First mark for Gary.
That looked like a good ball going in, and would
Wow.
you believe the 7, 9, and 10, which is bad enough,
And the 10-pin
it kind of spun
twisted.
around. It's not bad enough, but there's no wood, no playable wood whatsoever. And he missed it. Make it an 8.
Gary Carrington, remember, is already qualified for the doubles tournament of champions with his partner Jack Ray.
Missing the head pin to the right.
Neil works as an inspector for General Electric.
Oh, nice 10.
That was a nice 10 box.
Splits the 5 and the 8. The 5-pin catches the 10. Watch this. Just before it goes into the pit.
Neil has 3 children, 17-year-old Brandy, 15-year-old Neil Jr., and 11-year-old Sherry, and does most of his bowling at the Lucky Strike and the Linway in Lynn. And now he's looking at the 1-2, 7, 8, 10, and that close.
Extremely close. Needs this one to tie the match up.
Nope.
No, Gary Carrington will lead by 1.
Take a look at that near spare.
Watch the piece of wood behind the 10-pin, right there. Just missed it. Gary Carrington for his 5th and 6th frames. String number 1, semi-final week. It's down to Neil Gosselin, Gary Carrington, or Glenn LeBlanc. One of those 3 bowlers will be the last qualifier this year for the Tournament of Champions, our singles version.
Oh, Gary had a chance with the ball in back, but didn't stay on the lane long enough.
I think he had a real shot at moving to the left piece of wood. That makes it a 10.
Well, the Tournament of Champions, Dan, gets underway just 2 weeks from today. April the 19th. And of course, this year, twice the action on the Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions because we've got 2 of them. In singles and in doubles, 2 hours each week for 5 weeks beginning on April the 19th, 2 weeks from today. Of course, added prize money in both tournaments. The bowlers that have managed to win the big matches all season long will be back to go for the big prize money.
Opening for Neil. 2 open frames to work on. Trailing by just a mere pin.
Through the center.
His ball breaks from right to left, and the last few times he was missing, the ball was hanging to the right. That time he seemed like he made the correction, but too much. And he went through the middle. Nice try there, though.
Well, O'Neill made that one shot in the first frame, but he really hasn't had much to shoot at. He's had a couple of great efforts, almost resulting in spares, but has just the one so far, and he trails by one in the match. But again, as you see, he's opposite another open frame.
Just took a deep breath. Calm himself down a little bit, probably.
Just clips the head pin that time, and that may be more of what he's looking for. He just clipped the head pin that time.
I would say if you had a choice, was to go heavy on the head pin or light, Park Place lanes, I would say go light. Keep the pins mixing as long as you can.
Louise Hamilton getting her first work down at the pin deck, and that will be out of play. It would not have been a factor anyway, I don't think. And as is customary here at Park Place Lanes, a fine round of applause. Neil wanted to wait until Louise got back in position. And he nails it for the spare. That was a sizable weight for that shot.
Right, yeah, actually when he started his approach and stopped, boy, that has to wear on your concentration, but he just regrouped and charged that 4-pin and nailed it right in the center. Gary Carrington right back on the head pin, and this time it's getting a little better. Last time he had the 7, 9, 10. Now he's got just a 7 and a 10, and all kinds of playable wood, none of which I think are going to help him.
Yeah, it's just not out far enough,
No,
I don't think.
It's going to have to try to split them. Yeah, that's what he tried to do, but they had to be, as Doug said, out a little further so you can get him to move left or right.
9 box for Gary.
So both bowlers kind of feeling each other out early in the match here. Well under their league averages.
Gary Carrington, of course, longtime participant on Stars and Strikes from Plastow, New Hampshire. He and his wife Kathleen have 2 sons, 9-year-old Matthew and 3-year-old Michael. Gary works as a pipe fitter for AT&T in North Andover, does most of his bowling at the Pilgrim Lanes in Haverhill, Mass. And has a spare in the 8th, his second mark of the match. Reminder, our participating sponsor here on Stars and Strikes during this series, Emmett Horgan and the folks down at Rockingham Toyota Dodge Nissan, right nearby here in Salem, New Hampshire. Come to Salem and save. Stop by Rockingham Toyota Dodge Nissan. Tell them that you saw them and heard about them here on Stars and Strikes. We would appreciate it, and so would they.
Two, 4, 7 with the 6.
No. Looked like he went down a little too far on that wood and slipped it in front of the...
I think there's a
6
case
pin.
of possibly the wood hurting the shot rather than helping it. 79 though, grabs an 8-pin advantage, but he's got to contend with a spare in the 8th that Gary Carrington has already posted. Tries the Brooklyn side this time. Nothing doing. 5, 7, 9. Trying to split the 5 and a 9. He made a similar shot opposite side for a 10 box early in the match. He had the 5, 9, and 5, 8, and 10. Ooh, that close.
Mm-hmm. $8 for Neil. So a chance for Gary Carrington to reassume control in this back and forth first game. Neither bowler able to really get anything started as yet. On the head pin full, not bad. 9 drop.
He threw his hands up, and usually when Gary does that, he says, he's just telling himself he's a little full, but that time he got the break, as Doug said, left just the 4-pin, and he makes it for 2 marks in a row.
His 3rd overall. Gary last week in his win over Joe Ashline had 16 marks, but the hidden story there was that 5 of the marks were strikes, and 3 of them came in a row in the 10th frame of the second game.
Well, 5 and 9 left, 8-pin on 8-pin fill on the spare. Looks like he should just drive the wood straight back and make it 3 in a row.
Does indeed. 118 with a ball to come.
You see him just driving everything straight back through the 5-pin and eventually the 9.
Gary Carrington with that short 3-step approach, but he generates the power. 9 pins the fill and a 127 as Gary piles up 56 pins in the last 3 boxes to make that game respectable.
Finally ends up very close to his 128 average, just 1 pin away. A little bit of bounce there. 3, 6, 7 left for Neil, and got some help in between.
Well, this creates some possibilities, this would.
It's got to have the 3-pin. And not full. He had the 3-pin all the way. A little bit left or right, he probably would have made that shot.
96 through 9.
So now he trails by a dozen, but more important, he's opposite a spare 9, so that lead could be increased if he doesn't match that mark.
Half Worcester left. So Neil had that good spare ball in the first box, and then he converted a spare in the 6th. But other than that, he's been open in this first game, and Gary Carrington able to put a little flurry together at the end, and that will give him the lead heading into game number 2. As Neil will wrap up his first string with a 105, and Gary Carrington leads by 22. Still 2 games to go here on semifinal week, part 1, the singles version on Stars and Strikes. We'll be back in a minute. But that's later. Right now, game 2, and Neil Gosselin trying to get some momentum going here.
Spread eagle.
Watch out. Almost got through the center. Hey, that didn't turn out too bad.
Always nice if you're going to get the spread eagle. If you can work it out for a 10 box, you kind of feel very fortunate. That's
and he
what
does.
He's going to do. Maybe heard some of the crowd. Stay on that head pin. That's the name of the game. Sooner or later they'll start breaking for you. There's the light hit. Let's see what happens. Well, 7-10 will watch the wood. Oh, that one turned a little too much for him, but better with the wood than not. And just try to go right down the center of the lane. Use all 3 pieces if he can.
Ooh. Wondered if it might be a little too far to the right. Well, didn't get it anyway. Even with the ball coming back. 9 bucks. Gary Carrington now with the 22-pin lead. Right in the pocket, leaves the 2-pin. Spare it up in the first. Gary, of course, had that 415 last week. I think, if memory serves me correctly, he's bowled higher triples than that here and not won. It seems a couple of times Gary has thrown big scores and not won here, so. Looking, of course, to try and make it 2 in a row so he can get a shot at the Tournament of Champions in 2 weeks, and he puts a strike on the spare.
As he comes back, the 9-pin falls forward into the 5. 2 marks in a row, and really putting some heat on Neil right now. And Neil back on the head pin this time. Well, it's better than the spread eagle, but it's still a tough spare. He's got the 3-pin all by itself and then the 4-7 in the left-hand corner. He's going to have to go after the single pin. The wood may help him in between. Again, he's right flush on the 3-pin. Left or right, he had a real good shot at making it.
Neil had to reset both lanes after that frame. Head pin came down over on lane 31 when the reset occurred.
One, 2, 4, 8. Can't really catch it on your screen, but he's kind of fading to the left with his steps, and when you do that, you have a tendency to leave the ball out to the right. That time he really turned the ball over, got to come back to the 10 box. He needs marks.
Especially now that Gary Carrington is threatening to put another little run together here. He's gone spare strike to start the second game, and he already leads by 33.
You can say Gary has found the range right now. Oh, he's right in there.
Oh, should have been a double. Actually, very close to being another triple. He had a 9-pin drop in the first box, leaving the 2-pin, but instead it's spare, strike, spare.
And he's climbing by 20 in the box. Lead now is ballooned to 44 and threatening to go higher.
Gary actually has 6 marks in a row now. He had 3 to end the first game and 3 more here. He's back on the head pin again, only this time with mixed results.
3, 6, and the 4-pin. And the way he's going, you almost expect him to make this. Oop, tried it on the inside.
We will pause here halfway through the match. Gary Carrington off to a good start here in game 2, adding to the lead. We'll return in a minute. Neil Gosselin with 16 boxes remaining in the match. He's going to have to mount a comeback against one of the best in the game.
That's for sure. And when he gets his nose in front, he's awfully tough. Great try there. But he's either missing the head pin or when he hits it, he's going through the center. This really hasn't consistently found the range that he needs. Combination of angle and speed.
Interesting thing is he had that fine spare in the very first box. Thought that might have gotten him off to a good start, but just not finding the range yet.
Probably would have if I didn't mention that. Usually they get that early mark, it kind of settles them down. 4 horsemen left, 1, 2, 4, 7, and again off the head pin.
Plus Neil was freely admitting to being a little nervous before the show. The winner of this match moves on into our series championship match next week against our #1 seed, Glenn LeBlanc, who has been here a number of times but has never made it to the Tournament of Champions. He's very much looking forward to that match next week, I know, from that #1 seeded spot. And he'll get the winner of this one. The winner of that match next week will move right into the Tournament of Champions.
4, 7, 6, 10. I would go right at the 10 pin. Let's see what Gary does. That's what he's trying. A little further to the right.
The runner-up today will receive third place prize money of $250. A runner-up plaque from the N&R Trophy Company of Winchendon, Mass. But what everybody wants is to get into the Tournament of Champions. That's what it's all about.
Interesting leave. The 6, the 9, and the 7 pin. Piece of wood half in the channel in front of the 7, but Gary's looking it over. I'm pretty sure he'd probably go after 9 pin, trying to jump that across. No, he's going to try the one out of the channel, and
it was an interesting play. It almost worked.
Really? Well, he's been out there a long time. He throws a lot of balls down those lanes, and he's probably seen every conceivable shot there can be, or at least most of them.
3 marks to start this game. Now 3 consecutive 10 boxes for Gary. And Neil is on the head pin and looking for a break. Gets one on the 10 pin. Leaves the 2-7. And tossed that one out there. It was close to a lob, but it stayed down and he got the spare.
Doesn't even touch the wood.
Catching the head pin again, another spare leave on an 8 drop.
5 and 8 left.
Yes, 2 in a row. So Neil gets 2 in a row for the first time.
Certainly what the doctor ordered at this point in the match. You just can't go into the 3rd game 50 pins behind Gary Carrington.
No, but Gary is right back with a big 9 drop, leaving the 7. The problem is, you just can't play defense in this game. Oh, and Gary slides off. Boy, I think he thought he had that one. I thought he did.
I did too. St. Paul seems to break sharp at the left, at the final 1.5 feet. And actually, the ball never really left the lane. But it's a 10, and it's an 8-pin reduction of that lead. Because Neil had the spare 8 already posted, and he has another one on the board now. Gary right back in the head pin, wants the 6-pin to go.
He was a little full that time and may have cost him.
Well, he's got wood in between the 2 and the 4 and the 6 pins, the 2 and the 6 actually. And he's going to get it. You know, inside or out, he felt that if he had that 2-pin, he could make the shot. Watch the ball carry him off into that 2nd piece of wood. And he matches the mark in the 8th. Lead now 45. Neil has yet to throw a strike. Light hit. Well, this is the one that started it for him, the 2 and the 7.
This is a little easier setup, actually, than the previous one.
You're actually right. Just going to miss this one, just miss it to the right. Still has a chance at making it.
He's right there. 3 in a row for Neil Gosselin. This crowd from Lynn starting to get a little excited.
Oh yeah, there's his first strike.
I
What
think
a
Neil's
flurry.
feeling a little bit better right now. He's been on the head pin now 4 times in a row. Strike on spare, and Neil gets to stay up there. He's at 122, plus the fill on the strike. Yeah, may have been a little too pumped up for that one.
Lofted that one out in the lane, so it never was in contact with that lane to break back for him, which his ball usually does from right to left.
Tough break on that ball, yeah.
But a good finish. He was at 56 through 6, and he finished with 128. 72 pins the last 4 boxes.
A 233 total through 2, and Gary Carrington steps up on a spare. Little thin, and there'll be no wood left on the lane for the 4, 7, 8, 9.
Just got to play the triangle, inside or out. It's just got to come off the wall for you.
That's the first pin that Gary has left standing in this game.
Lead now is reduced to 32. And Neil still has the strike posted in the 10th. He still has. It's not going to be erased. He's always going to have it in the 10th.
You sure?
Yeah.
It's going to stay.
Yeah, it's going to stay. 3:10 left for Gary.
This could be a big shot right here in the match. Oh, and he just slides by.
Too thin.
Well, what that means is that the lead will be under 30.
Long ways from a possible. It was a 53-pin lead at one time.
But right now, as Gary puts up his 132 for a 259 total, you see the difference. 26 pins the lead for Gary Carrington with 1 game to go to see who's advancing to the finals next week. We'll be back. Gary Carrington to lead off the 3rd game, the 3rd and deciding game here on Stars and Strikes.
Gary trying to take one more step closer to the Tournament of Champions. But the way Neil finished that last game, he may have something to say about it.
Oh, Gary got a nice break on that ball. I think he might have. I think he almost was expecting a half Worcester on that ball.
He was flush on the 3-pin. Got a good break. Leaves just the 1 pin, the head pin, and the 10. And like the bowler he is, takes advantage of that break. Catches the head pin. The wood does the damage on the 10. So he turns kind of a disastrous looking first ball into a mark in the first box.
His 9th of the match. And look out. The 7-pin will stick for now.
Just the 7-pin. Trying to make it 2 in a row.
No, he missed the last one. He didn't miss this one.
Maybe in store for another one of those quiet 400s from Gary. He's very quietly climbed to 259. Neil is right back in the pocket this time, starting to get those 7, 8, 9 pin drops now with that first ball. However, the 2, the 5 are left, but a tough piece of wood next to the 2-pin.
He can get to the left of it, and he goes too far left. He was trying to sweep it over and just was a little too fine with it. And again, same spot. Well, what we're seeing right now, or what we've seen in the last few boxes from Neil Gosselin, is just the difference being on the head pin can do for you.
That's right.
Oh, big first ball that time, and somehow the 8-pin is still there. And a piece of wood is rolling and rolling all the way back toward Neil. By the time Louise gets down there, I think she's going to have to come up the lane. According to the rules, she's got to wait till it stops rolling. And
she's sneaking up on it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to roll back, but if it does, we could be here all day. That's safely out of play. But this is not going to be an easy shot because it's
yeah, that piece rolled out as well. It was frozen against the 8-pin. It's not anymore. Almost with his ball, he almost got to go right at the 8-pin. Hopefully the ball will just carry him through the wood, and hopefully it doesn't go up over the 8-pin. He's going way down. He's got it.
Mark number 7 for Neil Gosselin. Gary Carrington has 2 in a row to start this 3rd game.
8-pin drop. 5-9 left for Gary, trying to make it 3 in a row.
Yes. A little heavy on the 5-pin, but he carried it.
Gave a little extra body English because he knew he was flush on the 5-pin, but it was enough to carry the 9.
Well, Gary did it with strikes, mostly, or in key situations last week. This week, he's featuring the spare.
Already at 47 through 3. Bonus ball coming.
Of course, we largely remember the strikes from last week because he had that triple.
4 horsemen right, 1, 3, 6, and 10 pins. Trying to make it 4 spares in a row. This time he's flushing the head pin and doesn't get away with it.
And a 9. 62 through 4, and with a 26-pin lead, that's a good way to start.
Best of both worlds when you're leading by that many and you can increase the lead, plus you're erasing a few of those frames that Neil needs to mark in.
Well, it's funny, Neil seems to be carrying the extra pins now, too. Even when he's not on the head pin, he missed it that time, but...
Got a break similar to the Gary's. He's left with just the 1 and the 7. He has to hit the head pin this time. And he does, and he converts it.
2 in a row.
You see the replay. Head pin, the wood takes the 7. 2 in a row. So take a deep breath, trying to calm himself down. Doesn't want to charge the pins. He seems to have it in sight now. That time he switched over to the 1-2 pocket, kicked out the 10. Watch out! He's gonna go! No! Yes, it does! Oh my!
Well, we're going to go to a commercial, but we're going to take another look at that, and Neil Gosselin may not stop laughing about that one for a week. That was the longest strike we've ever had, no question about it. Another look as we go to commercial. We'll be back for the end of this match on Stars and Strikes in a minute. Well, Gary Carrington still has the lead and has 6 boxes left in which to protect it.
I guess that's a good way of putting it, too, trying to protect it, because he's got a tiger by the tail right now for the last string and a half. Or last string, I should say. 5 boxes of the previous game and first 4 here. Neil has been a different bowler.
Gary takes 9.
71 through 5. You would think 71 through 5, third game, leading by 20-some coming in, that you'd be just cruising. It's not the case. If Neil were to get up and throw another strike, this time Gary leaves the 5 and the 9. Piece of wood that I'd say will cover both of those pins. Let's see if Gary tries to get by. He can see the 5 pin. That's what he's trying to do.
Ooh. Well, 2 open frames, and Neil Gosselin will come up working on a strike. That strike that he threw a moment ago that had to be one of the strangest ever.
You know, a lot of times when you get I don't want to say a cheap strike, but a slow strike or something you don't expect, now you throw one that's legitimate. You throw it and bury it in a 1-2 or 1-3 pocket and get the double.
Could it happen again? Oh, not this time.
Just the 3 pin.
I'll tell you, looking at the replay on that last strike before we went to that last commercial break, the 3, 5, 6, and 10 were left. And a piece of wood came over and took out the 10 pin in the back, and that's what started it all. Everything else fell forward. And now all of a sudden he's got 4 marks in a row. He has cut the lead to 21.
And he'll reduce it even more. Not only that, he's got the crowd back into this match for him. He's right in there again. Gets that extra pin.
8 Phil. An 84 half.
And the lead is now 13. And he's made this shot before, however, he's had the benefit of some wood behind the 2-pin. The roof's going to come off. He makes this one. No.
Well, this thing is going to go right down to the wire. We're just about at the wire now. It's a 13-pin lead for Gary Carrington with 4 frames remaining.
Cluster of 5 in the left-hand corner. 2, 4, 5, 7, 8.
No. Remember, this series is it. If you don't get into the Tournament of Champions this time, you have to wait till next year.
Wait till next year. That's a kind of catchy phrase. Wait till next year. And Gary, after starting with 3 spares in the first 3 boxes, he's been open the next 4.
How appropriate that I should mention that phrase as the baseball season opens. Well, Gary's looking to make something work here. The 1, 2, 9, and 10. He's in desperate need of a mark, and he leaves the head pin.
Well, you said something about protecting the lead. That's exactly what he's trying to do right now. 13 pins, 2 open frames now for Neil Gosselin to work on. 2 marks here, just virtually even up.
Off the head pin this time, and for the first time in seemingly about 10 or 11 frames, he doesn't carry an extra pin.
1, 3, 6, 7, piece of wood to help him behind the 1 and the 3. He's got to be thinking head pin though.
It's on it. Spare in the 7th. The lead is down to 11, less whatever he puts on this fill.
Gain 2 and count because Gary had the 8 box opposite this spare. He's in the pocket. He's in the pocket.
Oh, all of Lynn is screaming for him here. And Neil Gosselin has come from 50 pins down, and he now trails by 1. But he will take the lead when he fills that strike. Meanwhile, Gary Carrington just can't buy a break here.
Tell me there is not momentum in the game of Candlepin bowling as well. Everything seemed to be going Gary's way, and all of a sudden, Neil caught fire, and Gary now can't buy a break.
And it's a 9 box. Well, a mark here, in spite of what's happened so far, if Gary could somehow collect himself and put a mark up here in the 10th, he could still make it difficult.
He would have to put a mark up to win this match.
Well, he'll shoot at the 5 pin, and it looks like he's got a frozen piece of wood, but let's wait. Well, how about that for an important clutch mark in the 10th after going 6 frames without one?
Well, he's been here so many times, you just don't expect him to miss a shot when he has to have, especially a legitimate single pin for a spare. It happens, but not too often to Gary Carrington.
Needs a fill.
It's going to need a few more, I think.
Well, he'll take 6 for a 124, which means that Neil Gosselin will need 151 to win the match.
He's at a 144 clip now, but he's working on a strike, so he can't make any mistakes. He needs a good fill on this strike.
If he gets a good fill, he won't have to mark again.
That's right.
Off target. But look at this. Look at this. A mark would just about wrap it up if he converts this.
If he doesn't, he's going to have a decent box the last 10, the 10th frame. Watch out.
Wait. Thought maybe that had a shot.
They're all big now.
And he misses. That could be critical. It's a 142 through 9, so he needs 9 to win. 9 pins to win for Neil Gosselin as he moves over to lane 31.
Wow. 9 to win, 8 to tie, and we go to sudden death. Well, 2-box roll off.
Really turned that one over.
Well, he's off the head pin and missed the head pin.
Neil trailed by 53 pins with 14 boxes remaining.
That's
There
it.
it is. He's won it. He's won it, and he made it with a spare.
What a comeback. 53 pins down halfway through that second game. Just an amazing comeback, and to think he did it against one of the quality Candlepin bowlers in Gary Carrington is just amazing in itself.
He'll throw this one for fun, and it'll be a 6 fill, a 158 for Neil Gosselin, and a 391 after a 105 start. And Neil Gosselin rises from the dead to beat Gary Carrington by 8. We'll be back to talk to the bowlers and try and give away $100 in the bonus ball contest right after this. Back on Stars and Strikes, the applause is for Gary Carrington, a $250 third prize check and the runner-up plaque. And you've been at this long enough to know that sometimes these things happen, but I guess that's about all you can say at this point.
Yeah, well, the first string and a half, he had it tough. I had it going pretty good, and then he started going good, and then the crowd got behind him, and he was off to the races.
Oh, yeah, it was just one of those rolls.
Couldn't hold him off, you know.
It's just
I've seen everything happen, you know. I've seen everything. So
even I thought maybe when you had that mark in the 10th, maybe that would be enough to get it done. But of course, he came right back at you in the 10th.
yeah, that mark, I think I miscalculated. I thought I had enough to make him force to get another mark, but he didn't. All he needed was a 9-box. So.
Well, again, congratulations for the terrific bowling. Obviously, a 415 last week and another good triple this week. It just wasn't enough. And we're going to see you in the doubles tournament of champions in a few weeks anyway, so we'll see you back then.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Gary Carrington, nice job. Congratulations. And Neil Gosselin now. Step up on lane 31 for us if you would, and celebrate your victory with a bonus ball toss here. We're going to look for a $100 winner. And, of course, a couple of brand new sets of bowling balls on the line as well. And let's see, Neil is still getting pretty good mixing action here. Not good enough for a win, however. Sherry Sundstrom of Plastow, New Hampshire. Her guess was an 8, so Sherry, sorry you didn't win. We will add $10 more for next week's jackpot. It'll be $110. And Neil, slide right in here so everybody can see it. Congratulations, that was terrific. But I want to know, did you change anything from the first half of the match to the second half?
No, it was the crowd. I heard them all yelling for me, so I had to go.
It just happens. You get one or two, and then everything
That's
kind of
what happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. I got the one going, and the second one, the third. I got 4 in a row in that second string, and that helped.
But what I really want to hear real quick is your strategy on that strike in the third string.
I think it was the crowd noise. I think they reached the level there, the 10-point whatever, and
you may be right.
did it.
You may be right. We're going to have a championship match next week. You'll be back to face Glenn LeBlanc.
thank you very much.
All right, Neil, congratulations. First appearance here, and he makes it a big, successful one with a come-from-behind win against not just anybody, but against one of the best. Let's spin over to the ladder and set you up for next week. It'll be the top 2 seeds, Neil Gosselin against Glenn LeBlanc.
It should be a great one. Just going to ride this victory, and this crowd is not going to let him, just get back, be lazy on him. They're going to keep on him, so it should be an exciting match.
Championship week next Sunday at 12 noon here on Stars and Strikes. Don't forget, though, stay tuned. Just a few minutes from now, we'll have hour number 2. It'll be semifinal match on Stars and Strikes doubles. Until then, for Dan Murphy and the whole crew, Doug Brown, so long from Park Place Lanes.